Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to be discussing audience purpose and successful writing. If you need to find the slideshow, you can find a copy of it in Blackboard under week 2. So first, housekeeping stuff. I'll be asking this on Discord also, but I'm just wondering how your grade contracts are going. How are we feeling about the workload so far? And how are things going in your other classes? I've included a little meme. See. So with the audience, a key area of understanding and responding to a rhetorical situation involves connecting with a specific audience, no matter what you are writing, whatever medium you're using, you are approaching an audience with your work. Beyond simply writing to a generic reader or citizen of the world, authors use specific rhetorical strategies depending on their audience. And before you can analyze how effectively an author engages an audience, you must first think about that audience. What are their needs? Um, an audience is any collective intended recipient of the text, whatever form or mode that text may take, whether it's written or oral or audiovisual. It could be a YouTube video. It could be a tweet, a Snapchat, something on Instagram. Whatever that group is, the audience is going to be the person or group the author wants to influence. So you're going to want to ask a couple of questions when interpreting the rhetorical situation of a text. You're going to be wondering, um, who is the author addressing? Is it a professional group, an academic community? What background, interests, or values come into play when communicating to that audience? What context does the audience need? Situational circumstances, historical context, supporting details, necessary evidence, etc. Whatever context the audience is going to need to reach the conclusion that you are trying to guide them to. You're going to want to ask what style or voice is appropriate for the audience. What is the audience's perspective in terms of their likelihood to agree or disagree? And what should your audience do with this information? Is there a call to action at the end of your text? These are all very important questions you want to be considering. Think back to the last paper you wrote. Did you have an audience in mind for the paper, or did it feel like you were only writing for your teacher? Focusing only on the teacher as an audience often leaves us fixated on the correctness of our writing rather than devoting energy to shaping our rhetoric to reflect the values of a specific audience. So always consider the greater purpose of the work you're creating. It isn't about who's grading it. Focus on your writing and everything else will follow. Consider your most recent meta post, your most recent snap or tweet. You were probably hyper aware of your audience and how what you posted or shared might affect them or what their reaction might be to what you were writing. That was you actively anticipating their reaction and fitting your post according to their needs. Knowing that you've already had experiences with the audience that you were working with, and their expectations can help you understand the how of your writing rather than simply what you're writing in relation to your audience. And there are different types of audiences. An imagined audience, you might be asked to write to an audience of your own construction or one that has broadly defined values and interests. Try to think outside of simply writing to your teacher, but consider based on your purpose and main idea who would benefit the most from receiving the information you're sharing. And think about what you want them to do with that information. It could be prose in the form of an anecdote, like in the case of your literacy narrative, or it could be a research paper you write later on in one of your other classes. So always be conscious of the audience you are trying to reach. There are discourse communities, and this is normally an audience that you're more familiar with. We all have various discourse communities in our lives, whether it be sports that you play where the lingo is familiar to everyone. If you are a fan of football or basketball or baseball, you know the specific language that is used there. Or you might have other hobbies where you're familiar with that particular language that's used. Um, those communities that you're a part of, even video games. Um, in video gaming communities, there's certain languages that are used. It could be cultural languages, social languages, specific types of verbal and nonverbal communication. All of those unique discourse communities out there, we are all part of our own. So we are familiar with those audiences and what their needs and requirements are. And then there's organized and intended audiences. So this is a specific group of individuals who require more specific language and info based on your topic. Maybe you're writing to a group of economists who require technical or professional dialogue and clearly defined areas of interest. Or maybe you are writing to the local school board and need comprehensive research on the policies and activities of the school district. These more technical audiences can be harder to navigate, but all that means is you need to put the extra time and effort into your research and tailoring your written work to fit their needs. And there's also tone and style for audiences. One key aspect of defining and writing to an audience is understanding how tone and style come into play. Style refers to syntactical elements such as sentence length and word choice and punctuation. Whatever your overall purpose is in writing, your style should reflect that in terms of persuading or informing. And then there's tone, which is referring to how your audience should feel once they receive your message. Think of writing an informal letter to your grandmother versus composing a professional email to your boss. There are distinct differences. One example, imagine you write an email to one of your instructors. Two very different examples of that here, with the first one being more ironed out and the second one using slang and things like that. You definitely want to tailor your writing to your audience. In the first example, the students presenting a clear and concise email with appropriate language and well-formed sentences, the style and tone match the intended audience and give a clear purpose. While the second one is more unclear, it's more vague, the tone is informal, and the request for help is too general to affect a desired outcome. So it is important that you think about your audience, and you guys do subconsciously most of the time. Without even realizing it, we prepare ourselves to meet other people's needs. All of this to say, as you are working on your literacy narratives this week, think about the audience of what you're writing. It isn't just me. There are potentially different audiences you may be thinking of when you write this piece. So just remember, like the grading contract notes, you can take risks in this class. It's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to enjoy writing. Take those risks and have fun with it. Writing doesn't have to be boring. English 101 does not have to be boring. And that is all for this one.